What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Thinking Outside the Pylons. I'm your host, Chandler Pickett, and we have another interview today. It was absolutely incredible. I will be speaking to Jordan Papirny. Jordan Papirny is a goalie drafted into the WHL back in 2012. He has continued his hockey career since then and now currently plays for the Nadukes. He also played some time for the University of Calgary, and this is one of my favorite conversations I've ever had with an individual. Jordan is very humble, he's very well spoken, and he truly shows respect for every single person he's met and every individual in the hockey world. I truly enjoyed his story, his conversation. It was just honestly a very nice, humbling experience. Please enjoy the next 30 minutes of Jordan and I's conversation. I really hope this does help people out there, and I really hope you enjoy it. I'm going to throw it over to me, interviewing Jordan. What's going on, guys? Welcome to Thinking Outside the Pylons. Today, I am joined with Goalie from WHL, as well as Canadian College, and a little bit of some American minor league as well. Jordan Papirny. How you doing today, Jordan?
Doing great. Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, obviously, I have you on here because you have been playing hockey at a high level since 2013, right? 2012. So, you were probably I think, 14, 15 at the time going into some big league hockey.
Yeah, 14, 15 for sure. Yeah, it's crazy. At the time, it doesn't really feel big. You look back on it, you're only 14 years old, right? So,
Playing with
yeah, time definitely flies.
Yeah, it does. So you're drafted by the Brandon Wheat Kings first round in 2012 it was, and then I guess you started playing in 2013. So going from just regular junior high and everything, what was that like now moving out of your hometown and going into a new city and playing a new sport or playing for a new team?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you don't really think about it. When you're 16, I mean, you go down there for camp. And I was with my parents at the time, and you go there. And I grew up, obviously, with my parents, like really close with them. And then it's time for them to leave, and it's kind of like, wow, like this is, this is it. You're saying bye to mom and dad for, 8 months, and you got to learn to fend for yourself a little bit. Responsibilities, time management. You don't have mom and dad, waking up for school and stuff and all that, right? It's all you. You got to be on top of everything. And I think for me, that was the biggest wake up call. Was just like, if you're on your own, you got to take care of yourself, right? Like, you got to make sure that you're doing everything right on and off the ice, so you can perform in school and on the ice, obviously. So it was definitely an adjustment as a 16-year-old kid for sure. A little bit of
So
a wake up call.
now you did play in the WHL, luckily, and I know that you played for Brandon Wheat Kings, but at the same time, you did have the Edmonton Oil Kings were in the same league. So when you came back home, what was that like? Did your parents get to go out and see you and everything like that?
Yeah, dude, it was wild. I have a huge family, so they were all there at Rexall Place at the time, and it was crazy. Like, we had almost had like a whole section. It felt like my family, so it was pretty cool. And like, my family's all hockey nuts, so it was just, they're really excited to be there, and they all had my jersey on and stuff. So it was definitely really cool. It made coming home like that much more special, just knowing that you had your whole family there to support you, and then to see them after the game was really cool for sure. I know they definitely enjoyed it, but it meant a lot more to me for sure.
I was gonna say that's when that moment becomes surreal, right? That's when it becomes real, is that you get to play in front of your family who's seen you play since probably 4 or 5 years old. This sport that you've put so much into, and now you're doing it at a high level. That must have been the most incredible part of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember this one moment. We were playing it was a game on Sportsnet actually. Every Sportsnet picked up a lot of like CHL games, and we happened to be playing Oil Kings on like a Saturday night or whatever, and it was broadcasted. And I ended up being first star, and I got an interview on the ice after with I can't remember the gentleman's name who did the interview or whatever, but it was cool. And then my family was at the glass. So right after the interview, I walked over and we took like a little selfie in the glass. And, at the time it was a funny picture, but I look back on it now, I'm like, man, that's such a cool picture to have. And I think it sums everything up for sure.
That's really amazing. That's the kind of moments in sports that we all strive for, right? Those moments with the family after the game, and those are the moments you really look back out on and truly appreciate every single day.
100%, dude. You couldn't have said it better. It's like, every athlete, man, their parents make the biggest sacrifices, right? Ask any athlete who their biggest inspiration was. It's their parents, because they put everything on the line for their kid, to be committed to their sport and be successful in their sport. So, you know, it's a great moment for sure, and something I think me and my parents will, and my entire family will
Of course.
for forever. Yeah.
And then, so now playing for Brandon, you eventually become the longest tenured Brandon Wheat King for this time. You break the record for the Wheat Kings for most minutes ever played, correct? And most games started, I believe, right?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just a few. And then you also helped Brandon. I think it was in 2016, right? That you guys actually win, or 2015 that you guys actually win the WHL championship, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what was that season like?
Yeah. It was crazy. We actually started off like not so hot. We the year before we lost to the Kelowna Rockets in the final. They had a really good team, like Leon Draisaitl as an Oiler, Josh Morrissey, defenseman. Like they just had a really stacked team, and it ended up beating us. But we knew, like, going back next year, it was a year, but and just really slow, man. Like it was just like we might have been 500 first 15 games of the year, which is just not where you want to be, right? And we just had to come together as a group and decide, like, what are we doing here. Like, teams aren't gonna walk in and just hand you wins. And the other thing too in sports like that is people don't realize when you're the top dog, you're getting best game, right? When you're the top dog, it doesn't matter what sport you're playing, individual, team sport, you're getting everyone's best game because they're coming in and trying to take down the big dog, right? And I don't think we really grasped that early on, and it took a lot of character, a lot of internal conversations to figure that out. Personally, I think it helped me a lot as a goalie and as a player. And overall, yeah, I think we needed that little bit of adversity to get going, and we ended up kind of riding a little bit of a high into playoffs, and never really looked back. We beat Seattle in 5 games and won the trophy in Seattle. So it was pretty cool to just spend the night with the guys and not have it would have been cool to win at home, but
yeah,
it was pretty cool moment for sure. And now even just looking back on that team, man, like it's just crazy the bonds and friendships with some of those guys is so cool.
And that's the main thing about sports too, is right, the relationships and the family that you get even out of the sports before you even get the family going into it, right? So, and then I guess I'm guessing you guys flew back home as well. Was there anyone at the airport waiting for you guys when you got off the flight? Did you bring the trophy home with you guys?
Oh yeah, There's actually a pretty cool video on YouTube of us kind of throughout the day coming back and stuff. And we all came back, and there was a bunch of fans at the airport, so we did a little walk by there, and we went back to the arena. And they have in Brandon, they have, like, their arena is like it's like an arena with a hotel and like a bunch of like halls kind of attached.
Give you 1 second, just because
they rented out like a bunch of them. And pardon me?
Sorry, Zoom is just giving a little. Just continue. You're fine. Don't worry.
Oh, I'll get. So it ended up coming back, and they packed the entire place. We wheeled our bus right in and got kind of mauled by
awesome.
A couple thousand fans.
That's
it was
amazing.
a really cool experience. Yeah,
I mean, being a part of the team to win the first ever championship for your city is pretty special, right? Especially for you at this point. This is what, your 3rd or 4th year there, right? So, like, for you, you're looked upon as a bit of as a veteran, right? And you are the backstop, right? You're holding this team down, holding them accountable your entire career there. So it's more special knowing that you did make a huge difference on winning that championship.
Yeah, dude, it's super cool. And the city of Brandon is awesome, man. Like, it's special in a way that there's about, I don't know the population off the top of my head, I'd say 70,000 maybe. But it's kind of, the Wheat Kings are kind of really the only thing they have, right? So you're the big ticket in town, and the fans, like, they love it. They're so passionate. So to do that for them was so cool. Like, they loved it, and it was awesome place. I wouldn't want to win it anywhere else.
That's amazing. So then after that, the next year is your last year of WHL, right? And you're traded right at the trade deadline. And so what was that like, being traded for the first time in your career?
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I won't go into the details of the inside everything that went on with the trade, but as far as just the emotional feelings of getting traded, man, it's tough. Like you spend so much time with those guys, you win a championship with them, and it was hard. Like I remember I found out we had a practice after, and we had a practice in the afternoon. Our GM came in and said no one's allowed to leave right now until the trade deadline, which was 4 o'clock. And at this point, it was about 1:30. So we're kind of like, oh man, like someone getting traded, right? And little do you know, like it was me, right? I get a text probably a half hour later from our coach saying come to the office, and I kind of knew right away, like, oh, I'm being shipped off somewhere, and I thought maybe somewhere close to home, but I went in and they just said straight up, you're going to Swift Current. They wanted to, I guess, get me in a situation where I could play a lot because we had another goalie in Brandon where it just, we weren't able to we both aren't able to be in the net at the same time, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So, and he's a year younger than me, so I ended up working out for them. And it was really hard, man. Like that's a tough thing to go through as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old guy, I guess at that point. But to be with, all your best friends for so long and a city that know like the back of your hand by at that point, and to just be packed up and moving on the next morning was pretty hard to grasp for sure.
And then so you get now to Swift Current. What's your emotions walking to the building for the first time?
It was weird. Like it didn't even look like we played in that building. Like we played that team 8 times a year. So you got to think, 20-year-old year, I played in the league for 4 years. 8 times, like 8 times a year, right? I've been there lots. It was like not familiar at all walking up. Like it was a really weird transition going there and stuff. But man, that city is a lot of fun. Like same idea as Brandon. I mean, small town Saskatchewan. They love their hockey, and they welcomed me right away with open arms. And we had a really good team too. So it ended up being a pretty fun year, and like it worked out from what the GM told me in Brandon. I mean, I got to go there and play a ton my last year. And we went on a bit of a playoff run, but ended up coming up short.
So then for you, did you feel like a performance boost or even like a drop off going to Swift Current?
Man, like I struggled going to Swift. I went to Swift and I got pulled my first game in the first period. Like I led in 3 brutal goals. Like I just wasn't myself. I hadn't adjusted yet. And our coach came in after. It's a funny story. I got pulled, and then we were going to the intermission, and coach pulls me out of the locker room, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know this guy, but he's gonna probably yell at me. Like he's probably gonna be pretty cheesed. And he's like, I'm gonna put you back in. Like, you're good. I was like, honestly, Manny Viveros, he's a coach in the American Hockey League. He's a tremendous guy, a great coach. And I said, Manny, like I'm not good to go. Like I'm not doing good here. I need some more time to settle back in here. And I just, mentally couldn't really make the adjustment as far as on the ice. So ended up staying on the bench. We lost the game by like 7-2 or something like that. And went back again. It still took me a couple games to find my stride, but it's like, man, every athlete has something to turn to, right? You got to simplify the game, and no matter what sport you're playing, right? Whatever you're doing, individual sport, team sport, I mean, it comes down to yourself, and you got to simplify what you're doing and make it as easy as you can and get back to the basics. And that's what ultimately I did, and finished off pretty strong.
That's awesome. Hey, at least you had that adversity, right? You felt the worst of the worst, and you didn't want to feel that way anymore, and you were able to pull it out, right? So that's the main goal. So you finish out your last season there, and then from there you go to play in just collegiately in Canada, correct?
Yeah, well, actually, funny story. At the end of my 20-year-old year, I actually went to the American Hockey League.
Okay.
With the Toronto
Marlies.
Yes.
Sorry, I did see that. Yes. So what was that like?
It was wicked. It was really cool, man. Like you're one step away from the NHL. Like it's a crazy league. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play. I was just kind of brought in. They call it a Black Ace squad. So essentially, you're like a practice squad for playoffs in case anyone gets hurt, because all their rosters are all frozen and stuff. So it ended up being a really cool experience. Toronto's a great city. I'd never been there before, so met some really cool people. Kyle Dubas was the general manager of the Marlies. He's now the head guy for the Leafs. He's now the GM there. So he was a really cool contact. He was awesome to me, man. Like this guy was the life of the room. Like you come in and everyone would just like light up, and it's Kyle Dubas. And I remember my first day I met him, and he said to me, he gave me his phone number. He says, "You need anything, let me know." And I was like, "Yeah, sure thing." Like he's like, you want to go to Jay's game? You want to do this? You want to do that? Let me know." And I kind of was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then literally the next day was a day off, and he had shot me a text and said, "I got 2 tickets for the Jays, right behind home plate. You and your
Wow.
roommate go." So just really cool. Like he was awesome, man. And man, picture this time they're in a middle of playoff push here, and I'm Joe Blow coming in, right? Like for him to do that was pretty wicked, man. It was an awesome experience for sure.
So now, obviously, that season ends out. I'm guessing after that was the opportunity you got to go to UFC.
Yeah, when I was there, nothing ever really panned out of it. No contract or anything for the next year. So I decided to end up going to school. And man, that's tough too. Like you have this barrier in front of you of like, do I go play pro or do I go to school? Because the Western Hockey League provides you with a scholarship after you're done there. And if you don't use it in your first year, you lose it
Oh
essentially.
wow.
So if you decide to go play pro, you lose your scholarship. And they'll pay for any Canadian school. I should add that in. So when I was talking to University of Calgary, essentially you have a full ride in front of you to go play hockey, be close to home, or go gamble on yourself and try to play professional somewhere. So that's a hard decision, man. And at the end of the day, you'll never know what decision or what route is best. You just gotta pick one and roll with it. And I ended up going to school, and thankfully I did. I mean, opening your eyes to the world of education and kind of the real world, as people call it, is crazy. Like it's so eye opening, and understanding that, okay, well, your sports are there, but there's also a bigger picture going on in life, and to set yourself up to be successful after whatever you're doing is crucial. So for me,
So
that was kind of the decision.
so then we'll get back to that, and then just a simple question is that do you think you made the right decision then for going to school over then going trying to go professional?
I do. I wish I would have looked more into the education aspect of things. And by saying that, I mean I went right into like arts right away. I wasn't really sure. And it's kind of like any kid coming out of high school, right? You don't really know what you want to take, so you
Mm-hmm.
just kind of take X, Y, and Z and hope something sticks. And I guess I put a little more attention to that side of things, because I didn't end up sticking around UFC because of the schooling.
Okay.
Not that it's a bad school,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was nothing there I wanted to take, right? Which led me to my transition to Nate, which is a separate conversation. But yeah, no, it definitely, I'm really happy with the route I took, and being close to my family and my fiance now it's been awesome.
So then now for the sport aspect, for the hockey side of it, you're at UFC for 3 years. How were the years, like sports wise, playing wise?
It's a great league, man. It really is. Like it goes underrated. I mean, there's I think there's going to be players consistently once COVID fizzles away and we start getting back into games and stuff and getting full seasons under our belts. There's going to be players signing in the NHL out of that league, man. I guarantee it. I mean, they had a player right before COVID, the year before, out of U of A, who signed with the Calgary Flames, Luke Philp. A great hockey player, but it's just opening the doors for so many athletes to come in and know that there is opportunities to go possibly to the NHL after, and move on and try to play professionally after, because that's the stigma that almost gets painted in your brain when you're making that decision, right? Is like, do I go play pro or do I give it up and go to university, right?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially now it's like you're not really giving it up. You're just using it as a stepping stone to potentially further your hockey career and get an education, right? So
Yeah, because
the hockey there is improving a ton.
and that's because hockey and baseball kind of have the same model when it comes to going pro, right? A lot of people in baseball will sign to minor league deals when they're in high school, right? You can get drafted into the MLB coming out of high school, and a lot of people will go to JUCO for a year or something like that. So hockey is the same way, is where you have to follow the WHL route, or maybe if you get lucky OHL, and then on and on, right? So it's kind of a weird mix of like they don't really look at college hockey quite as much now, but you are right. It is starting to open because when you look at the NHL draft now, you do see more people come even out of the NCAA. Like most American players, it seems like do come more out of the NCAA than they do kind of minor league hockey.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
so it makes sense that you do, because at the end of the day, you want to be able to have an education at the same time, right? You don't want to give up your education for a sport because most sports you do have to go to school for it, right? Football, obviously, things like that. You want to get that education. You don't want to set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Man, it's crazy that a lot of kids, and back to baseball. I mean, 17, 18, having to make that decision. That's hard, right? Especially, you're getting paid to play the sport you love, or there's college opportunities. Like it's such a tough decision for a lot of athletes to make, and it's yeah, it's so hard, man. You got to really go through every different possible route and ultimately come down with what's best for yourself and your family, right?
Yeah, of course. So
But
that being said, you play for UFC until 2019, and then in 2019 is when you move back to Edmonton and you go to Nate, correct?
correct, yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
what was the reason for the transition? Just like you didn't like the schooling of UFC, or
Yeah, I didn't. I was taking arts and trying to get into business, and I kind of was like, hey, you know what? If you're getting your education paid for, why aren't you doing something that like you're a little bit more serious about doing? Because I had no idea what I wanted to do, and essentially I was kind of like just trying to be a really good hockey player. I wasn't really focused on the school aspect, and as I started going along, you start to grow up a little bit and realize that what am I going to do if hockey doesn't work out, right? So you start exploring other options, and I ended up looking at a program at Nate. It's an architecture technology program. So I decided after talking with the coach on the team who I actually knew growing up here from Edmonton, we decided it was a good fit, and I thought, you know what, this is great. I can come play my last 2 years in Edmonton with my family, and they can come to games and stuff, and then I can finish my education here. So it was kind of a no-brainer. The stars kind of aligned. Just ultimately really happy I made that decision because I love the program I'm in. We have a great hockey team, and I'm back home. Like it's mentally, like I feel like I couldn't be in a better place, and it's just ultimately I think I made a really good decision. Yeah.
Nate's a really cool school as well because I've been there before and it seems like it's a very close knit community when you go to Nate. Like it's not like places where you go where the campus is so large and there's so much going on. Everyone there really does know each other and there's so much going on there and really their athletics is very good. Like truly from basketball, volleyball, like the Ooks, they're very good. Yeah, at all the sports that they play, and it's one of the, I know in Canada they have like one of the highest work rates coming out of college as well, so it truly is a very good school to come out of. They actually have one of the best sports broadcasting programs, believe it or not, coming out of the Nate as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. They what they have going on there is awesome. It opens up a lot of different avenues for people too, right? Like, you kind of get out of the mainstream types of degrees and diplomas you can get, and you head into some unique things like broadcasting, like you said. I mean, it's crazy. Some of the classrooms I walk by and see what's going on in there is like, it's like a whole different world, man. It's nuts, but it's tight. Like you got, there's max like 35 kids in your class, 40 kids
Hmm.
for a reason, right? It's not, I wouldn't say it's small in that regard, but it's meant to be, more of a one-on-one learning, right? Rather than going to a lecture with 900 kids in your class and
Hmm.
your teacher doesn't even know your name, right? Like it's just a totally different learning experience for sure. And like I definitely needed that. I think I'm a kind of guy that needs to be forced to go to class, and not forced,
But
but
like seeing you,
like,
you want to be noticed when
yeah,
you're in there.
for sure. And be able to talk to my teacher, ask questions, and not feel awkward, raising your hand in a big auditorium of people and everyone staring at you, right? Like it's just a completely different dynamic. I love it, and I recommend the school to everyone. Like, yeah, I think, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong for
That's
sure.
incredible. That's awesome. So now you have
Yeah,
one more year for Nate, like eligibility, right, for Canada hockey, right?
you bet. Yeah.
Okay, so now and then in 2019, 2020, you actually, or 2020, you got to play a little bit. out of Canada and you came to my neck of the woods and you actually came down to
How fun.
Florida. So you played in Estero, Florida. You played for the Florida Everblades, which is the dopest name for a hockey team there could ever be. So what was that like?
Man, first off, like me and you, so a little background. Me and you, we in junior high, we used to go back and forth because you were from Florida, and I would always say, "Man, like it's not as good as Edmonton." You'd be like, "You're kidding," and we'd always joke around about that. And having been there, man, it's a great place. Like, God, you get off the airplane in that air, that is just it's crazy. It's a beautiful city. Yeah, opportunity came up for me to go play pro in Florida, and I was like, man, this is yeah, absolutely. Let's go do it. And it was just a really cool experience. Right in Fort Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Same idea, man. First class organization. They take care of their guys really well, and they're a really good team too. And that's a byproduct of how they're treated and all that stuff, and being in a great place, right? I mean, those go hand in hand. And I loved it, man. I would go back there in a heartbeat. It's a great spot.
So you only did get the opportunity to play one game, which you actually did you played a very well game. You 38 saves, 40 shots, only let 2 in. You guys won 3-2, I believe. So like what was the reason that you only got one opportunity, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so the whole reason for me going down, it's kind of a long story, but essentially they had a couple call ups and an injury going on. So some guys got called up to the NHL, actually. Crazy how that stuff works. But yeah, so and they ended up the coach there is from Edmonton,
Okay.
Jesse Calaki's great guy, and he ended up kind of doing a little bit of due diligence on me and scooped me up out of Nate and called our coach to see if I'd come down for a stint, whether it was a week or a couple months or the rest of the year. And they presented me with the idea, and with keeping my eligibility too. So you got to keep in mind that I wasn't throwing away my schooling or scholarship like anything like that. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I'm like, yeah, this is good. It checks all the boxes, and I got down there, and the other goalie was playing really well. Jake Hildebrand's name, phenomenal guy, great goalie. Like this guy's insane, great athlete, and he just kind of went on a little bit of a heater and was playing well. And we had a 3-3 in Orlando, and Hildy played really well. And then our coach came in and said, "Hey, you're going to play the second one. We'll give Hildy a break in between games 1 and 3." So he's like, "It's your net." And I was ecstatic, man. First pro game, and
I was
went
gonna say,
in and just
how was that your first pro game?
first pro game. Yeah, it was wild, man. And to give you a little context, like we hadn't done much with Nate back home. Like we hadn't really been doing much at all. Like I had probably been on the ice in the new year maybe like 10 times.
Wow.
So not a ton. And I just thankfully had been, staying in shape and then getting to Florida and practicing and stuff like that definitely made the transition easier. But I went and played well and just kind of, back to the whole Brandon Weeking situation and just simplify your game as much as you can and don't let any other noise in, right? So that's all you can really do, and it ended up working out.
That's awesome.
Won the
So
game.
did you guys play in the Amway Center or where'd you play at?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a crazy building.
It's a cool building. So I go there for the Magic games all the time, and yeah, that's a really dope building.
Yeah, it's even the outside, man. I got like the balcony coming
Mm-hmm.
off. Really cool. Yeah, I was like, man. And then you're walking down the tunnel, and you look to your left, and they have all the performers who ever performed there with the year on the
Mm-hmm.
wall. So you're walking on the ice, and you're like looking. It's like Justin Bieber, Maroon 5, and it's like, wow, this is crazy. Like, what a building.
You were on the same
So
floor, ice, that Shaquille O'Neal was on, right?
yeah, for
Like
sure.
stuff like this,
Yeah.
right? So that's a really surreal experience. So now my question is, obviously COVID's had effects and everything. Do you still pursue going pro? Is that something that you're still focused on and going for?
At this point, I'm not too focused on it. I mean, I had that opportunity, and I'm really happy with how it went. And I got a taste of professional hockey, and it also made me realize too that my schooling is really important, and it is so important to have something to fall back on after. So for right now, I'm going to finish my schooling and just see what job opportunities come up, and see how the hockey season goes. I mean, if something crazy comes up after the hockey season, I mean, it definitely weigh out the options. But like I said, I'm 10 courses away from graduating and being done, I kind of just want to get
Yeah, I was gonna say, get like you're almost there, right? So you were
yeah,
put in a very
exactly, get that done with.
yeah,
Yeah,
and you're put in a very fortunate situation for you because you did get to play a sport that you loved for so long at such a high level, right? So from age 14 pretty much up to age 20, you were playing very competitive high octane hockey. And then you're like,
for
okay,
sure.
then what let me just go to school, and while I'm going to school, I still get to play the sport I love. So
Yeah.
that is something that you've gotten the opportunity to play, which is truly incredible. Um, do you ever feel like there was ever an opportunity that you weren't given the chance that you felt like you deserved, or did you think it all panned out the way it should have been?
I mean, you can go back and forth, and break down every little thing. I mean, I'm a big believer in kind of everything happens for a reason. And, I was always a guy in junior that was, when you come up and you're 17, you're draft eligible for the NHL. And I had a really good 17-year-old year, and I thought, okay, maybe there's a chance. And I heard a lot of feedback from my agent at the time saying, you're only 6'1", which is considered undersized, and which is crazy. Like 6'1" is, pretty ideal, I would think. And it's just kind of the way the game is heading now. I mean, what he told me was there's about 15 teams in the NHL who have they aren't allowed to physically draft a goalie that's under 6'3".
Really?
Like it's you know crazy, yeah. I don't know, whatever. And maybe he was just maybe saying that to I don't really know, but
Make you feel a little bit better,
um,
possibly.
yeah, potentially, right? I don't know, but I mean that's the standard that they're trying to set in at that level, drafting kids, right? Because you can get a kid in who's 6'4" and train him a little bit to kind of play the way you want, and you kind of can mold this perfect goalie, right? But you're seeing it now so much. I mean, there's goalies who are 6'1", 6'5". UC Saros in Nashville is, I don't even think he's 6 feet, and he's an absolute stud. He just signed a big ticket, and it's a little bit tough to think back and be like, man, what if I was 6'3"? What if I was 6'4", right? So I definitely had a hard time with that. Just something that's out of your control. I mean, you can't control how big or how tall you are. You'd almost rather someone tell you that he's too out of shape. Okay,
Hmm.
well then I can go get back in shape, or he's too slow, or this, that, or the other thing, right? It's something that it's like, oh yeah, he's good. He's just 6'1", and as an athlete, it's just like, oh, I can't do anything about that.
Yeah, and I get for goalie, like you do want a large goalie, but at the same time, when I'm thinking about this, wouldn't skill truly translate a lot better, right? If you a ceiling is a ceiling, but for you, if you have the opportunity, if you're 1 inch under the mark, you would think that you can be taught to have better positioning, that 1 inch would make a difference, right?
Yeah, man, it gets broken down like crazy. And I mean, and don't get me wrong, there are goalies who make it through, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
goalies who are 6'1" and 6 feet who they're elite, man. Like these guys
Mm-hmm.
are pro ready, as you could say, and they end up getting drafted and going on and being pretty good pros. But it's just there's still that little stigma around that. If you're kind of a middle tier guy or bottom tier guy, it's like they're looking at that 6'3" number. And yeah, unfortunately, I didn't grow anymore. I'm still 6'1", but yeah, that was definitely tough to wrap my head around, man. Like it's hard for sure.
And it seems like, I don't know if hockey still is this way. It seems like sports alone are trying to get into the idea that size might not necessarily matter, because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you look at just across professionally in the NFL, obviously Drew Brees, we were talking about the Saints earlier before, had an incredible career at 6'1", right? Kyler Murray is not even 6 foot. I don't care what the Cardinals say. Baker Mayfield is 6'1", right? And then you look at even in the NBA, Trey Young is very short. Steph Curry is very short. All these players in other sports are starting to get that opportunity. And it's just kind of weird because it doesn't seem like it could be height or size anymore. It truly is moving towards skill
Mm-hmm.
in professional sports these days.
100%. Couldn't agree more, dude. I think you're right, and it goes back to what I was even saying about those goalies who are doing it at 6'1" and 6 feet, right? Like it's something that the game is trending towards, and they're setting now a standard for these other goalies who are 6'1", 6 feet to come in and follow in their footsteps a little bit. It's definitely a little bit of a mental hurdle though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of something that always gets brought up at some point, and it's your job as an athlete to overcome it or, block it out. Right.
Yeah.
That's definitely the hardest part, but it's crazy. And I think the game is definitely trending in that direction. Like you said, I think all sports are kind of headed that way.
Because I mean, I did a little research. I look at your stats before, and truly, I mean, you're around 3 goals a game average or less every one of your seasons. You're at a 90% save percentage around all of your seasons, and it's not like you're playing 2 or 3 games per season. You're getting up there in your game. So it is kind of odd to see that and know that maybe you weren't given an opportunity. And this isn't to say like everything happens, right? Everything in sports is a business, right? At the end of the day, and marketability is a big thing as well, marketability. So it is very surprising that, I mean, with how humble you are, honestly, one of the most humble people I've ever spoke to, one of the most go-getter, like ready to play any situation you are giving, that any option that you've been given. I'm just honestly surprised to not see that next step happen and flourish. But you truly hold a high weight of yourself, and you're truly an incredible human being in which you can stay so humble and you're so happy out of every outcome. Like you were just so like go with the flow, like let's just enjoy it. And obviously you probably had some hard nights. You were probably tough on yourself and things like that. You're probably the most relaxed guy, and then once you mess up, you get so angry at yourself on the inside that you don't show it. But you show such grace and you show such professionalism in the way you talk about anyone and any league or any team that you've ever played for. It's truly incredible, and I honestly have loved this entire conversation.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, 100%. I agree, man. I think at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason. And like you said, I still did have opportunities to go play and to showcase myself for pro teams and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, it didn't work out. And it is what it is, man. The more you sulk about it and get upset about it, it's going to create problems down the line. So best to keep, eyes forward and foot on the gas and just, plug away. So,
and at the end of the day, you are getting a degree from it. To be able to say you got a full ride scholarship, no matter what sport you play, is incredible. To be able to play as long as you did is incredible. And honestly, you had a great career. And I know whatever job you get and whatever career you do there, I know you're going to stay involved with hockey for the rest of your life. I know that's going to be, it's bred into you. It's going to be bred into your kids or any person you're coaching. So you never know what can happen. And I know you're always going to be there. So truly, thank you for what you've done for the Brandon Wheat King community. Thank you for what you've done in the Edmonton community. You've honestly shown such grace, such professionalism and everything. This was an incredible conversation. I really do appreciate how humble and how great of a human being you are. You've always been this way. I've always known you this guy. And it's honestly just amazing to be able to sit down and have this conversation with you.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. It was a blast when you messaged me to come on. It was a no-brainer. Yeah, awesome, man. It was really nice chatting, and hopefully we can see you soon when things open up. We'll be back in Edmonton, or
no, you're coming back down here. You're coming down to Florida. That's how it's gonna be. Yeah. But I wish you the best in your career when it comes to hockey. I hope you can have a great last season. I hope you're able to have a last season. I hope that's able to go about. And truly, best of luck for everything. And thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Awesome to be here.
Awesome. That was Thinking Outside the Pylons. Thank you for Jordan Papirny. You guys all have a great night. Bye, guys.